All right, so today I'm going to be teaching you all how to build a honeypot in AWS. If you're new to my channel, hey, hello, how are you? If you're not new to my channel, just hey, I guess. So first, what is a honeypot? Well, it's a decoy system that's made intentionally vulnerable, right? So it's specific. It's a computer basically that is specifically made to be attacked and easy to be attacked. And you might ask, well, what's the benefit of setting something like that up on our network specifically? Well, the benefit is that when someone attacks your honeypot, you can analyze their attack patterns. You can see what passwords and usernames they attempted when they tried to get in. You can see where all these, we call them script kiddies, where these script kiddies are attacking from, right? Which countries have the most IP addresses so that we can update firewall rules, essentially. Here are the prerequisites in order for us to successfully follow along with this tutorial. The first is you need an SSH client of some form, shape, size, right? So if you have a Linux machine, that would be your terminal by default. If you have a Mac OS machine, once again, it is your terminal. If you have a Windows machine, you're going to need to use PuTTY. In this tutorial, I'm using my Kali Linux virtual machine in order to SSH in, right? So if you don't have a Linux operating system or Linux-based operating system, you have a couple options. You could either install a Linux virtual machine, which I can show in another video if you all are interested in learning how to do that, or you could download PuTTY if you're using a Windows system and SSH that way. I would recommend the virtual machine. I find that it is great skills to have. Just understanding virtual machine is a good skill to have. And then I also find it's a bit easier as well. That is prerequisite 1 of 2. The second prerequisite is to have an AWS account. The reason for that is we're going to be using hardware that AWS hosts, which means, yes, it is not free. You will be charged, I think it's around 20 cents an hour for every hour you have your honeypot up. Right? I will be showing how to break that honeypot down at the end of the video as well. There is a way to do this for free locally on your own VM. That is absolutely a great option. However, this video is meant to give you all some AWS skills. So I'm going to be showing how to do it in AWS. All right, now it's time for the build. So we will be using AWS for this build. Make sure to make an account. So I'm just going to log into mine. Now for the most difficult part of the setup, I have to do the characters here. Now that we are signed in, I'm going to go to my EC2 instance dashboard. We have it as recently visited site here, but if you don't have that, just type in EC2. Click on this top entry. And we are now in this dashboard, right? And you're going to see I already have a couple servers up and running. The next thing we want to do is choose which region you want to put your honeypot in. Now, if you put your honeypot in North Virginia, right, you're going to get different attacks than if you put your honeypot in Tokyo, right? So just keep in mind that different factors will affect what your honeypot catches. Some countries will have less traffic than others. North Virginia gets a ton, and for some smaller countries, that just may not be the case. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this from North Virginia. I'm going to choose Tokyo. That's where I want to launch my server. So I chose Tokyo. Next up, we're going to hit Launch Instance. What this will do is it's going to launch a machine that is dedicated for me. Right, it's going to use one of AWS's servers that's somewhere out in the US, or in this case in Tokyo. It's going to use one of their servers, right? Allocate a certain amount of space on that server for me, and that's what I'm using for my honeypot. The reason we're not running this on our home network or our enterprise networks is because we don't want the honeypot on that network. We don't want someone to hack our honeypot and move horizontally, right, and threaten our resources, right? So we're using AWS in order to containerize this quite a bit. So I'm going to hit Launch Instance. I'm going to hit AWS Marketplace, this tab right here. And this will allow me to search the marketplace for a specific operating system for our virtual machine here, right? For our the machine we're spinning up. I'm going to look up a Debian 10 Buster and hit Enter. Pick the first option you see that says free tier eligible. We're not going to be using the free tier. We need a very capable machine in this case, right? So just keep that in mind. And I'm going to hit select. All right, it's going to give us that little spinning wheel, of course. One thing to note, it is not free to do this, right? Another reminder, it is not free. You have to pay to sign up for AWS. You need to put your credit card in. You can see the prices you have to pay, right? We're going to be using a T2 XL, right? And you can see you pay about 24 cents per hour for that. And while that might not sound like a lot, if you forget to turn your instances off, it can cost you money, right? So keep that in mind here. right? In total, I run my instances usually for like a week or two, and it usually ends up costing me like 20, 30 bucks. As I was saying before, right, this is actually the pane, right, the choose instance type. It's the pane where we get to choose our hardware, right, this one little window here. We could see that if we go for the cheaper ones, right, we have T2 Nanos, we'll get computers with 1 CPU and half a gig of RAM, right? That's bad, that's not powerful enough, and you're going to have a very laggy honeypot if you do that. Instead, I'm going to do the T2.XL. This is 4 CPUs, 16 gigs of RAM, right? And network performance is moderate, right? So this looks pretty good without being too expensive. I'm going to hit Next, Configure Details. Leave the VPC as the default here. For subnet, just choose one of these. It really doesn't matter. If you're in North Virginia, I usually choose 1A. I'm just going to choose 1A here too, but it's not going to change anything for us. Make sure that auto-assign public IP, it's going to say use setting enable. Just make sure it's set to enable. Just hard set that, right? We're going to need to, in order to use our honeypot, visit it via the web, right? And it needs to have a public IP for us to be able to do that. You're going to hit Next, Add Storage. This is going to be the amount of storage on your machine, right? So if you have a computer with, let's say, 500 gigabytes of storage, right, that's how much you can fit on it. It's no different here. I'm going to put 128, right? Now, it's unlikely that if you run this for a couple days, it's unlikely you'll fill all 128 gigs with memory, right? Keep in mind the reason we're making the size bigger is because all of the attacks that we're getting hit by, we're going to be logging and collecting information on, and that can add up quite quickly. So I hit Next. We're on the Add Tags page. I'm going to hit Add Tag here, and I'm going to put name as the key, and I'm going to put honeypot, right, as the value. I'm going to hit Next. Leave the security groups as default. We'll change these later. This does not matter yet to us. And I'll hit Review and Launch. It's going to give us a review. You could scroll through it, make sure that everything looks the same as mine, and then hit Launch. What we'll do now is we're going to create a key pair. This key pair is how we will log into our server. So instead of choose an existing key pair, I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to do Japan Honeypot as the name. The other key thing to note is you need to download this key pair and make sure you save it somewhere where you can find it, right? Don't save it to a location that you'll lose it. This is our only way into our own server, right? So that's a key thing to know. So I hit download key. It's going to ask me to save my file. I hit yes. I'm going to launch my instance. It now says my instance is launched. I'm going to click right here, and we're at that portal. If you don't know how to get to your instance portal, just type in EC2 again, right, to start over from the top of it. Hit that EC2 option, right, and it'll take you to this instances page once again. So it's going to say status check initializing. This is going to take about 5 to 10 minutes in order for the status checks to go away and for this to be a server that we can SSH into, right? But for now, one thing I want to point out, another very important thing to note, is you will only see the instances on the region you are currently on. For example, if I go to North Virginia, I no longer see the instance that we set up. I only see the North Virginia instances. This makes it really easy for you to be able to accidentally leave servers running, right, which is bad. So just keep in mind, whatever region you are on, make sure when you're turning these instances off, you go back to that region to do it, right? So I'm going to go back to Tokyo once again to see that server that I have running there. And we'll do a little bit of a waiting game here. All right, so now we have status check 2 of 2, right? 2 of 2 is passed. Our machine is up and running on Amazon's web servers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select it, right? Just going to click this box. I'm going to hit connect, and we're going to go to SSH client, right? So just make sure you are on the SSH client pane. Now there's a couple of commands we need to run before we can successfully log in, and I'll show you that in just a second. But one key thing to note, as I said before in the beginning of the video, in order for this to work, in order for us to SSH into our box, you need to be using some sort of Linux machine with a terminal that allows for SSHing, right? So if you're using Mac OS, you're fine. Or if you're using a virtual machine that is Linux-based, that is also fine. This will not work for Windows. You're not going to be able to SSH in unless you have a special program like PuTTY. So just keep that in mind. And let me know in the comments if you all want to see a video of me setting up a virtual machine that uses Linux. I can absolutely do that. So First up, we have open an SSH client, right? That's basically what I was just talking about. Locate our private key. I'm going to go to my system. It should be in downloads here. So we see, it should be a .pem, Japan honeypot.pem. Perfect. What we're going to do, we're going to run this command, chmod 400 japan honeypot.pem. I'm going to do Control-Shift-V to paste. What this is doing is it's changing the permissions of the honeypot key so that we can use it for authentication. All right, so I just ran that command by hitting enter. And then last but not least, we should be able to SSH into our box with this command down here. So I'm going to Control-Shift-V, hit enter, and we should be met with this authenticity of host reply. And all we have to do is type yes to fingerprinting, and we will be logged in just a moment, right? You can see my terminal has actually changed. It's no longer Ryan. It's no longer Ryan at Cali. Now it is admin at the IP address of our box, right? So do all the normal Linux commands you usually would do. If you don't know Linux, that's okay. Just wait for the next instructions. But as you can see here, right, this is an entirely different box. I'm now actually logged into my Amazon machine, right? And that machine is way out in Tokyo, which is why this is lagging so much, right? Okay, so next up, what are we going to do? We need to download the Honeypot. We actually need to download the Honeypot software onto this box so that we can set it up properly. Before we do that, we have to do a little bit of, a little bit of groundwork, a little bit of, I guess, fertilizing the ground, I guess. So what I'm going to do first is do sudo apt update. This is going to update our system, so it is the most up to date. Not to use the word to explain the word. And basically, it's going to make it so that we can download newer commands. It's going to upgrade our file that has all of the different libraries that we pull from when we install. So I'm going to hit enter. This is going to spin around for a little bit. It should be relatively quick. So first we do sudo apt update. And then once this is done, I'm going to do sudo apt upgrade. All right, so we just updated our system. Time to upgrade it now. It's going to ask you, do you want to continue? Hit Y, hit enter, and it will continue that for you. All right, now that we are finished with that, I'm going to do Control-L to clear my screen. And now what we're going to do is we're going to install the git command. We're going to be using a repository on GitHub to set our honeypot up. So in order to do that, what I want to do is sudo apt install git. Right, so we're going to be installing a new command on our system called git. Right, so this is what we're installing now. Once again, it's going to say, do you want to continue? Hit Y, hit enter. Right, and this one is going to be relatively quick. It's just installing a single command for us. All right, this next one is going to take a little bit longer. What we're going to do, I'm going to clear my screen one more time just to bring my cursor up. We're going to do git clone, and we're going to clone the repository of the honeypot that we're installing. And that repository is going to be, and I'll show you this address again in a moment. The repository is going to be here. github.com, telecom, security, enter. So this is the actual setup, right, or the actual thing we're pulling from GitHub to set up our honeypot, right? It's made by a telecom company. I forget which one. I think it's T-Mobile, if I'm correct. They have a couple different repositories. We're using the Teapot CE repository, right? So this is what we're going to be installing onto our Debian 10 machine. And you can see it runs on Debian, right? There's all of these different honeypots. You could read a little bit about them. They've got some cool ones. ADB Honey is actually basically going to make our machine look like an Android phone, right? So one of the ports is going to make our machine look like an Android phone, so we can see specific attacks that target Android phones. We have the Cowrie report, which is going to be looking for attacks on SSH, looking for attacks on Telnet, right? We have so many more here. It's really an awesome tool. So, in order to get this, right, to get this onto our system, to install the honeypots, I'm going to go back to our terminal, right? We're still logged into our machine. You can see that on the admin. Make sure you're not doing this on your host machine. Make sure you're not doing this on your your Kali user. You have to ensure that you are logged into this admin IP, right? Make sure that this is what shows up on the prompt. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do git clone https://github.com/telecom. Ooh, spelled telecom. Ooh, 0 for 2. Telecom. Nice. Dash security. And then /teapotce.git. This command, right here, this command is going to pull all of the code you just saw there onto my machine. And when we hit enter, you will see it is cloning it. It is getting all of the objects from that GitHub repository, and it's bringing it onto my AWS machine. Right? Looks like it's almost done. It's just hanging up a little bit. And now we are complete. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to do ls, right? And we can see we have this teapotce here, right? We now have this new directory. I'm going to cd or change directories into it. Teapotce. I'm going to do ls again to list the contents of that directory that we just swapped into. And what we have here is we have this install script. I'm going to do sudo for superuser_do install.sh, or excuse me, /install.sh. Also, my Kali makes that funny sound whenever I misclick. And last but not least, I'm going to do --type equals user. Right, so this is the full command. Sudo superuser_do. We're using the install bash script. Right, we can tell it's a bash script because it's .sh. And then we're giving it this argument, --type equals user, and hitting enter. Now this is going to take a little bit, right? So I'm probably going to put another montage on this part as well. All right, one thing to note, right? Welcome back. It's going to tell you in the middle of this, continue, hit yes. Right, once we're at this point, once you hit yes, it's going to give us these options: standard, log4j, sensor. Stick with standard and hit enter. Now we're going to choose our username for the honeypot. I'm going to name mine honeypot. Right, that's my username, but use something better, please. And then hit enter again. And now you're going to enter your password. This is what we're going to use to get into the web portal. Oh my god. All right, third time's a charm. Okay, finally. I'm so happy I got that. We're going to do some more waiting. Stay tuned. All right, so that took a while, but if you were successful, it will actually have kicked you off of the server. Right, you can see I'm back to my Ryan, my Kali machine, my Ryan user. And the reason for that is it changed up a lot of the configurations on that machine so that I can no longer connect. Right, now we have to write some rules to let us back in. So I'm going to hit the dots here. I'm going to go back to AWS, right, and I see my honeypot server right here. I'm going to click on the instance ID. Scroll down and click on security. I'm going to click on security groups. Now I know I told you all not to worry about security groups before, and that is correct. You weren't supposed to worry about them at that time, but now it is time to worry about them. We have to actually change these security groups so we can get back into our server. So I'm going to hit edit inbound rules, change this from SSH to custom TCP, change this to our port, which is going to be 64295. This is actually where our SSH service is, and if you say, Ryan, isn't SSH usually on port 22? You are correct. The reason why the honeypot changes that and makes it a non-traditional port, puts SSH on this port instead, is so that attackers can't find it as easily, right? Next up, I'm going to switch this from custom to my IP. I'm going to censor my IP right here, right, so you don't all see it. After this, I'm going to put this is to SSH in for us. Now I'm going to hit add rule, and I'm going to do 64297, right, keeping this as custom TCP. This is going to be my IP address once again, right, which of course will be your IP, but just different than mine. Just select the my IP as the source. This is for the web portal, right, so this is the port we'll host the web portal on. last but not least, I'll add the last rule, and this is going to be from port 1 to 64,000. This is going to be anywhere IPv4. This is where we want the bad guys to attack us, right? Anywhere from port 1 to 64,000. Right, so this is to let the baddies in, right? The bad guys. Bad guys in. I'm going to hit save rules. All right, so once those security groups are updated, I'm going to go back to my server, clear my screen, and all we have to do to our SSH command, let me pull up the one from before. Let's go up. All we have to do, the SSH command that used to be able to work, is we have to add -p 64295. Right? Keep in mind, we changed the port that we SSH on. So in order for us to still SSH, we need to specify in this command which port we want to connect to. And just like that, we are now logged in as admin on, it's called Solhot in this case. And if I ls, you can see all the directories. I'm going to cd into teapot, right? And we could do all of our stuff there, right? This is our machine that we're in back again. But we're really, excuse me, voice crack. What we're really going to be interested in, right, is let's go back to our console. Let's take the IP address of our instance, and let's go to the web portal. Right, so I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to my URL bar. I'm going to type https:// my IP address, another colon, and we're going to do 64297. That's the port that our web portal is in. And once you have that, obviously your IP address will be the only thing that's different here. And hit enter. You're going to be hit with this potential risk, like do not go ahead. You know, we're cyber people. We're going to hit advanced, and we're going to accept the risk and continue anyways. Next up, you're going to be met with this login prompt. Use the credentials you created before. Mine was Honeypot, and once again, still not telling you my password. When you log in, you're going to look at your dashboard, and this is our Honeypot dashboard. To see the view that I was showing in the beginning of the video, you can go to Kibana, right, and it's going to populate that for you and show you all of the active attacks. Keep in mind, it's going to take a little bit or a little while for your machine to get attacked, so give it a day. Just keep in mind, the longer you leave it running, the more money it will charge you. So, I'm gonna clicked on the first option, the teapot option. Right, we can see we already have 16 attacks, right, and they look like they're mostly from the United States so far. Right, and here's our dashboard. All right. So once you get this set up, you know, world is your oyster. Feel free to explore. There's a ton of different honeypots to check out and different attacks. Just keep in mind, once again, you will have to leave this running for a little bit in order to successfully view more than, you know, just like 10, 20 attacks. All right. So in the next stage, we're going to talk about how to deconstruct this all. All right, so let's say you're done with your honeypot, you've analyzed some attacks, you had some fun, right? But you don't want to keep getting charged, 20 cents per hour. What you have to do, right, is go to the region that you set up the honeypot in. Right? In this case, it was Tokyo for me. Select the honeypot, hit actions, or excuse me, hit instance state, and then terminate instance, and hit terminate. This will terminate our instance. It's going to say shutting down for a little bit, and it'll stay in our queue for like another 10, 20 minutes, right? But what we're currently doing is we're deprovisioning our resources, and we will not continue to be charged for this. Right? So this is how we wind down, right? How we deconstruct our honeypot once it has been set up. So that wraps up our video. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment, and thank you for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.